29 to 32 today. And I'll start us off here. Let's see here. Good, I got the word software already up there. That's good. All right. Shalom, everyone. Welcome. I'm Brother Doug, as always, and I'm with all my brothers and sisters here at the Wakened by Yahuwah Assembly. We are going to be doing Job 29 and 32 today. We kind of messed up last week and redid a couple of chapters that we already recorded, so that's why we're only focusing on Ayub, Job today. Yahuwah willing, we will be back to doing the book of Numbers next Shabbat. But right now we're going to be focusing on 4 chapters of Job here. So I'm going to start us off with chapter 29, and I will be using my parallel here. So let me see here. Let me go to show all windows here. It's not showing some of the windows here. Okay, so what I'll try to do is just share the whole screen. Hopefully that works. It's a little loophole I know about, so I won't have to keep switching the view. All right, so let me just, all right, so that's that. There we go. So here we go, the word software. I really recommend the word software when you're doing parallel studies or compare studies. It just has a bigger view than the eSword. The eSword tends to make it very narrow when you're looking at the 2 translations at once. So here we go. I'll keep it on the ISV and the LXXC there. Okay. Let's see here. Where's Job? Sometimes it's a little small here. Okay, there we go. Job 29. Ayub 29. Okay, so Ayub bemoans his former prosperity. Now Ayub continued and said in his parable, "Oh, that I..." I'm going to have to clean up later. And Ayub continued and said in his parable, "Oh, that I were as in months past, wherein Allah preserved me, as when his lamp shone over my head, when by his light I walked through darkness." Interesting, by his light. Mm-hmm. "When I steadfastly pursued my ways, when Allah took care of my house." I already see a difference here. I'm going to jot down here where in verse 4 there, it seems like the focus in the Masoretic is on Ayub rather than Yahuwah. See, Sister Ronnie's trying to get in. Let me admit her there. Okay. So we're at Ayub, Job 29, verse 4. And I'm just jotting down a little difference here. So let me just, nothing personal, but I want to make sure there's no background noise here. Okay. I just noticed there's a difference there in verse 4. You have the focus of Yahuwah in the LXX where it's saying he took care of my house, versus the Masoretic kind of tries to put the focus on Job and try to make it look like Job is boasting in himself. So just minor difference there. "When I was very fruitful and my children were about me." Okay, so now what I noticed too is the Masoretic adds in verse, "The Almighty was still with me back then." I find that interesting. The reason I find that interesting is because the LXX does not have that part of the verse. So I wonder if that was added by the Masoretic text. Because as far as I know here, Job would not be questioning that Yahuwah is not with him. So this sounds like, a presumptuous thing by the scribe here. That Yahuwah would not be with him anymore. So that's, I'll put a little question mark next to that part of the verse because it's not in the Septuagint at all. Okay. When my ways were moistened with butter and mountains flowed for me with milk, when I went forth early in the city and the seat was placed for me in the streets. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to look for a little bit more of a word for the Masoretic because I'm wondering if the ISV is kind of paraphrasing a little too much. Let's try the ISR here. Yeah. When I went out to the gate by the city to take my seat in the open square, the young men saw me and hid, and the aged rose up. They stood. Okay. Rulers held back their words and laid a hand on their mouth, and they that heard baruched me, and their tongue clave to their throat. For the ear heard and baruched me, the eye saw me and turned aside. Yeah, see, right here is a huge difference in verse 11 here. We have Masoretic claiming that they gave witness of him, like showing that they're a true witness, it seems like, versus the Septuagint saying that they turned aside, which means, they would have showed partiality. They turned aside from judgment. So to me, that's a huge difference. It's showing that in one account of this book, the Masoretic is trying to say that Job is giving them credit of being a true witness versus the other, the Septuagint, Job's actually accusing them of being showing partiality. So that's the reason I pointed that out. For I saved the poor out of the hand of the oppressor and helped the fatherless who had no helper. Let the baraka of the perishing one come upon me. Yea, the mouth of the widow has baruched me. By the way, if you have like a Middle English translation, yea just means yes. So just FYI. Also, I put on righteousness and clothed myself with right ruling like a mantle. Interesting. Now, Mom, is a mantle a hat? I'm just seeing difference in wording here. The Masoretic says turban, and the Septuagint says mantle. Aren't those two different objects?
I'm not really sure.
So
there's one mantle I know about, but I don't think it has anything to do with this.
Okay. Let me look up the word mantle here. I want to look up the word mantle.
It's possible, though, that what it means now, it didn't mean back then.
Yeah, that's true. I want to look something up on etymology online. Let me see here the word. See if we get the origin of the word mantle. It would just be very strange for it to differ that much, unless like
it seems to be like an outer garment. Like I thought a mantle would be like over a fire pit or over a fireplace, but it seems like it's an outer garment.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Online etymology dictionary. A loose sleeveless garment worn as an outer covering, falling in straight lines from shoulders. So I would actually side with the Septuagint on this. In fact, they say mantle instead of turban. Mm-hmm. Turban would just be a top garment. That would just be, your hat or your crown. The Septuagint is saying that not just his crown, but his whole outer garment he's putting on righteousness as a whole outer garment versus just, his crown. So I would definitely make a note of that difference there. So the Masoretic says that as a turban. LXX saying for his whole outer garment. So I was eyes to the blind, I was feet to the lame. Now, I'll be honest with you, I think it's starting to switch prophetically here. This is just my opinion. I believe he's being led by the Ruach to actually speak as if he were Yahuwah in a way. I was eyes to the blind, I was feet to the lame. We can find that in Isaiah. He will give sight to the blind and all that. I think it's Isaiah 61 verse 1 or something like that. And Septuagint. So we see that this definitely seems to be not just Job speaking of himself, but prophetically, possibly of Yahuwah, of Yahusha, giving sight to the blind and being feet to the lame. I was a father to the poor. I investigated the case which I did not know, and I broke the jaw teeth of the unrighteous. Now, that definitely sounds like Yahusha there. Because we see in prophecy that he's, isn't there stuff in the Brit Hadashah that talks about that? He will break the jaw of the unrighteous or the wicked.
Sounds familiar. Not sure.
29:17, 6. Broke the jaw of the wicked. I want to look into that because I think a lot of this is prophetically talking about Yahusha. That Job is just being used as a vessel here. Kind of like how David in David in Psalms would talk about that, obviously David was never promised to be Melchizedek. So, there are times Yahuwah does that. He'll use a person to prophetically refer to Yahusha. Then I said, my age shall continue as a stem of a palm tree. I shall live a long while. Verse 19, root was spread out by the water, and dew would lodge on my crop. My esteem was fresh in me, by bow prospered in his hand. Heard me and gave heed, they were silent at my counsel. And my word they spoke, at my word they spoke not again, and they were very glad whenever I spoke to them. Interesting. As thirsty earth expecting the rain, so they my speech. Where I too laugh on them, they would not believe, and the light of my face was not veiled. I chose out their way and sat chief, and dwelt as a king in the midst of warriors, as one comforting mourners. So this seems to be Ayub kind of remembering, the old days of him being, sat as a king, that those respected him, people reverenced him and stuff like that. So it's kind of like dual. It's almost like a dual speech here where he's speaking of himself, but he's also, there's certain things that definitely could be applied to Yahusha before he even came. We knew that he was going to be giving sight to the blind and all that. So it's a very interesting chapter. It's very interesting. I don't know if there's anything really that I wanted to talk about here because it's pretty much self-explanatory, a lot of this stuff. Even putting righteousness on as his outer garment, that's kind of similar to like, isn't there a prophecy in Isaiah 11 where it talks about he will put on righteousness?
Yeah, I think so.
Could have swore it's in Isaiah 11 about Messiah. Could have swore that. So we see like a lot of prophetic stuff in this chapter. I don't know, Mom, do you have anything to add?
Not really, no.
Okay, so I don't think, if we don't have anything to add, I think we'll go to chapter 30. I'll let you read chapter 30.
Okay.
Let's see here, let me just set it up. And all right, go ahead, Mom.
Okay. But now they mock me, men younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to put with my sheepdogs. Of what use was the strength of their hands to me, since their vigor had gone from them? Haggard from want and hunger, they roamed the parched land in desolate wastelands at night. In the brush, they gathered salt herbs, and their food was the root of the broom tree. They were banished from their fellow men, shouted at as if they were thieves. They were forced to live in the dry steam beds among the rocks and in holes in the ground. They brayed among the bushes and huddled in under the underbrush. A base and nameless brood, they were driven out of the land. And now their sons mock me in song. I have become a byword among them. They detest me and keep their distance. They do not hesitate to spit in my face. Now that Yahuwah has unstrung my bow and afflicted me, they throw all restraint in my presence. On my right, the tribe attacks. They lay snares for my feet. They build their siege ramps against me. They break up my road. They succeed in destroying me without anyone's helping them. They advance as through a gaping breach. Amid the ruins, they come rolling in. Terrors overwhelm me. My dignity is driven away as by the wind. My safety vanishes like a cloud. And now my life ebbs away. Days of suffering grip me. Night pierces my bones. My gnawing pains never rest. In his great power, Yahuwah becomes like clothing to me. He binds me he binds me like the neck of my garment. He throws me into the mud, and I am reduced to dust and ashes. I cry out to you, O Yahuwah, but you do not answer. I stand up, but you merely look at me. You turn on me ruthlessly. With the might of your hand, you attack me. You snatch me up and drive me before the wind. You toss me about in the storm. I know you will bring me down to death, to the place appointed for all the living. Surely no one lays a hand on a broken man when he cries for help in his distress. Have I not wept for those in trouble? Has not my soul grieved for the poor? Yet when I hoped for good, evil came. When I looked for light, then came darkness. The churning inside me never stops. Days of suffering confront me. I go about blackened, but not by the sun. I stand up in the assembly and cry for help. I have become a brother of jackals, a companion of owls. My skin grows black and peels. My body burns with fever. My harp is tuned to mourning, and my flute to the sound of wailing.
All right. So you noticed anything, Mom, or?
Just he seems to be at this point and at an all-time low, very, very, very discouraged, and yeah, just sort of just seeping in his trouble, you know.
Yeah. It seems like one of the things I think Ayub had a problem with was the esteem of men. I noticed that in the past chapter, it kind of hints around that he reveled in being reverenced by other men, with being in a high position. And yeah, I think a lot of us, it's an easy trap when we start, when men become leaders, we tend to, sometimes we get puffed up and all that. But now I am their music. So like basically he's just kind of giving the opposite paradigm of what he used to be in their sight and what now he's disdained by them. He's beneath them, and all that. Trying to see if there's anything else to really talk about here. I don't see much difference in this chapter between the two. Excuse me. By night, my bones are down. Exertion. Okay. My portion is dust and ashes. Okay. They attacked me also without mercy. Different little wording there. They attacked me without mercy. You have become cruel to me. Wow. Okay. Whoa, that's different. Okay. So what I find interesting here with the difference here in this chapter is who was already full. Okay. Let's see here. So you have Job 30, verse 21. You have the Septuagint saying that they attacked him, versus the Masoretic seems to be implying that Job is blaming this on Yahuwah, which again doesn't make much sense. Especially since the whole narrative of this chapter, he's talking about men. He's not talking about the creator. He's talking about men have done this to him. Men have esteemed him as less than them. So it doesn't even make sense with the whole narrative of the chapter. Even in the Masoretic, that this one verse would contradict the rest of the chapter. So for whatever reason, they changed it from they attacked me also without mercy. It doesn't talk about Yahuwah until the second part of the verse. You have scourged me with a strong hand. Versus Masoretic says, you have become cruel to me with the power of your hand. You opposed me. Oh, I see what happened. They took out the first part. Okay. I see what happened. The Masoretic left out or omitted. They attacked me without mercy. I see what happened. Okay. Without mercy. So that's a big omission in my opinion. That gives you the proper context of the verse right there. So anyway, for I know that death will destroy me, for the earth is the house for every immortal. Yeah, I like just a personal preference of mine. I prefer mortal versus all living, just because it's a little bit more specific there. For I wept over every helpless man, groaned when I saw a man in distress. But when I waited for two things, behold, the days of evil came more upon me. So you kind of see where Job's theology is lacking in this chapter. He believes because he's done all these righteous things that he deserves a reward. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the idea that if you do what Yahuwah asks you to do, you should be getting something in return, rather than doing something because that's really our job and that's what we're put on earth to do. There's like two different mindsets. So you can kind of see that Ayub, I think when this book was written and the whole narrative of this book shows Ayub's gradual walk with Yahuwah, we see that even at this point, he really doesn't know Yahuwah. He's kind of he seems like a lot of us like that come into this walk or trying to get rid of the worldliness out of ourselves and these wrong mindsets of, well, I'm entitled to get something because I did something. And For some of us, it takes us a while to unlearn that. We're not entitled to anything. It's our purpose here on earth to do the things he's talking about in this chapter. Okay, so anyway, I became a brother. Now, this is where it gets weird. I became a brother of monsters and a companion of ostriches. I would disagree with the word that you use for ostrich here. This should actually be sirens when you look at the Greek. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of how Brenton translated that word. Really, but it's very weird. Like Ayub is so depressed here. He's saying, I became a companion of monsters and sirens, or a companion of sirens, a brother of monsters. Man, you got to be really depressed to start saying that. My skin has been greatly blackened. My bones are burned with heat. My harp also has been turned into mourning, and my song into my weeping. So he's basically abased and very humbled at this point. You know, he's become humbled, he's become abased, he's become depressed, brought low, and all of that. So, but yeah, that's what I took away from this chapter is his, there's a little bit of self-entitlement there, which I can relate to. I can definitely relate, not trying to attack Ayub here, but that's stuff that we have to unlearn after a while is the self-entitlement of, you know, we deserve something for obeying Yahuwah. We really don't.
No.
We really don't. Yes, he gives us rewards in the kingdom, but it's not that we deserve them and all that. So that's just a mindset we have to let go. Anyway, let's see here. I think we're gonna do a new reader here. We just did 29 and 30. We got 2 more chapters here. Sister Sally, would you like to read chapter 31?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
I have made a covenant with my eyes. Why then should I look upon a young woman? For what is the allotment of Elohim from above, and the inheritance of the Almighty from on high? Is it not destruction for the wicked, and disaster for the workers of iniquity? Does he not see my ways, and count all my steps? If I have walked with falsehood, or if my foot has hastened to deceit, let me be weighed in a just balance, that Elohim may know my integrity. If my step has turned from the way, or my heart walked after my eyes, or if any spot adheres to my hands, then let me sow and another eat, and let my harvest be rooted out. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, or if I have lurked at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind for another, and let others, bow down over her, for that would be wickedness. Yes, it would be an iniquity worthy of judgment, for that would be a fire that consumes to destruction, and would root out all my increase. Innocent of abusing his power. If verse 13 now, if I have despised the cause of my manservant or my maidservant when they complained against me, what then shall I do when Elohim rises up? When he punishes, how shall I answer him? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one fashion us in the womb? If I have kept the poor from their desire, or caused the eyes of the widow to fail, or eaten my morsel by myself, so that the fatherless may not eat of it. But from my youth I reared him as a father, and from my mother's womb I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perish for lack of clothing, or any poor man without covering, if his heart has not blessed me, baraked me, and if he was not warmed with the fleece of my sheep, if I have raised my hand against the fatherless, when I saw I had help in the gate, Then let my arm fall from my shoulder. Let my arm be torn from the from the socket. For destruction from Elohim is a terror to me, and because of his magnificence, I could not endure. Innocent of trusting in the wealth. Verse 24. If I have made gold my hope, or said to find gold, you are my confidence. If I have rejoiced because my wealth was great, and because my hand had gained much, if I have observed the sun when it shines, or the moon moving in brightness, so that my heart has been secretly enticed, and my mouth has kissed my hand, this also would be an iniquity worthy of judgment, for I would have denied Elohim who is above. Innocent of not caring for his enemies. Verse 29, if I have rejoiced at the destruction of him who hated me, or lifted myself up when evil found him, indeed I have not allowed my mouth to sin by asking for a curse on his soul. If the men of my tent have not said, who is there that has not been satisfied with his meat? But no sojourner had to lodge in the street, for I have opened my doors to the traveler. If I have covered my transgressions as Adam by hiding my iniquity in my bosom, because I feared the great multitude and dreaded the contempt of families, so that I kept silence and did not go out of the door. Job pleads to meet Elohim and defend himself. Verse 35, oh, that I had one to hear me. Here is my mark. Oh, that the Almighty would answer me, that my prosecutor had written a book. Surely I would carry it on my shoulder and bind it on me like a crown. I would declare to him the number of my steps. Like a prince, I would approach him if my hand cries out against me and its furrows weep together. If I have eaten its fruit without money, or caused its owners to lose their lives, then let thistles grow instead of wheat, and weeds instead of barley. The words of Job are ended, and that was him calling for his day in court. Do you want me to go on and read chapter 32?
Oh, no, that's okay, sis. I'll probably pick on someone else. I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance here, but you did a great job.
Thank you.
There's a lot here. Let's unpack here. So let's see here. Let's move up here to the first thing I noticed. Let's see, verse 6. I noticed something here. Here we go. I am weighed in a righteous balance, and Yahuwah knows my innocence. So we have the Septuagint showing that Yahuwah should be there rather than Alua. So again, we have the tradition of replacing his name with a title, which you go into like Encyclopedia Britannica and other sources, you'll see post-Babylonian captivity, they started doing that, and orally, they would not really use Yahuwah's name anymore. They would either call him Alua or even worse, El or Al, which again, Al or El as a name goes back to Baal, El, Kronos, Saturn. It gets really to be a problem when you look at the prefix El by itself or Al by itself. It was used by the Canaanites to describe the name of their deity rather than Yahuwah. So unfortunately, as Jeremiah prophesied, they would start forgetting Yahuwah's name in the worship of Baal, literally. And they still do it today. They call him Hashem or Adonai. Hashem is probably just another Baal. Adonai, we know for a fact, is another Baal. Adonis was the Hellenistic version of Baal. So we see that prophecy in Jeremiah 23 became fulfilled. In Jeremiah 23:27, it mentions that these so-called shepherds would get his people to forget his name in the worship of Baal. So just to show you guys, those that have not seen this here, I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about here. So if you go to Jeremiah 23, 23:27 says here, who devise that men may forget my law by their dreams, which they have told everyone to his neighbor. That's why we need to be careful about dreams. Any type of dream should line up with the word. As their fathers have forgot my name in the worship of Baal, not just for the name of Baal, worship of Baal. So like people say to me, what's the big deal, Doug? Why can't we call him the Lord or God? Okay, this is why. It's tied to the worship of Baal. So who you acknowledge you worship is who you worship. So talk about praise the Lord. Yeah, you're praising the Lord, but the Lord's not Yahuwah. So that's why it matters. So Adonis, Adonai, whatever name that we've been deceived into using, all those go back to Baal, Nimrod. So that's why it's a big deal. Anyway, so let's see here. Fail to see. I know there was a couple others here. So the next time you see the substitution, I think is in verse 14, which we already went through. Then you get down to verse 23. And it's interesting here. It says, the Septuagint says, for the fear of Yahuwah constrained me. I cannot bear up by reason of his burden. Versus the Masoretic, for I am in dread of destruction from El. And from his excellence, I could not escape. What I find interesting in this verse, just the way it's worded, it's showing a difference in who the Masorites think Yahuwah is versus who Yahuwah really is. I kind of wonder, and this is more conjecture on my part. I'm going to admit I can't prove this, but I wonder if the Masorites believed Yahuwah to be like a meanie in the sky, like big meanie in the sky, like, you know, the demiurge type of thing. Just the way the verse is worded, for I am in dread of destruction from El. And you compare that to for the fear of Yahuwah constrained me. There's just a little difference in the wording, and I would possibly contend or argue that there's a difference in character versus the scribes of the Septuagint versus what these Masorites think about Yahuwah. And so that's just something that I noticed there in that verse. A little difference there. Again, though, the bigger problem, El instead of Yahuwah. So again, El goes back to Kronos, Saturn, and all that. If I made gold my treasure, and if too I trusted precious stone. Okay, so have gold as his refuge. So it's basically saying don't make worldly possessions your trust, basically, which we see in the book of Yakub. I think that Ayub definitely had someone teaching him some stuff about scripture. And this is why I have no problem believing it's either that or Masha wrote the book of Ayub. There's too much stuff that is hinting at Torah here in this chapter. You have what was one of the themes, Mom, that talks about if I hid my food for myself and never gave to the poor, the widow. Mm-hmm. That command is not even given until the law of Moses happens.
Yeah.
This is why I think Masha had to be the author. This is why I believe Moshe is the author. One of the reasons is because when you look at all this stuff, there's even stuff about creation in this chapter. The only person that would have known that at early on in the Tanakh time period would have been Moshe. I mean, you could contend, but Noah and them are already dead. And Ayub, even most scholars don't put before the flood. So that means then you have to have someone after the flood that would know all this stuff. And, that's why I believe Ayub was written around the time of, somewhere halfway through the Exodus story. I believe Moshe would have wrote the book of Job. That's what I believe. And he would have known some of these things because, Yahuwah is telling him these things. He's at the mountain. He's getting the law from Yahuwah's throne. Basically there's a gateway to heaven being opened at the cloud. He's being given, the Torah and everything. So it would be very easy for Yahuwah to tell Moshe, listen, this is how the creation actually happened. This is how it happened. When I made my angels, they praised me with a loud voice, Job 38:7. It's very, I personally believe it's very conceivable Moshe wrote this book. And possibly if he did ever meet Ayub could have told him certain things about his journey and all that, about how he didn't really know Yahuwah until a certain point. He never saw Yahuwah manifest himself until a certain point. So I could easily see Ayub telling him this if they ever met at a certain point. But anyway, that's kind of my conjecture on it there. Just looking at some of these things that someone would have had to know the law of Moshe to write some of this stuff down. I mean, we could argue that, giving to the fatherless and widow would have been a concept they would have had, but it's really never commanded until much, much later after the book of Genesis. The whole narrative of Genesis, there's very few far in between commands like that in the book of Bereshit. So I don't know. That's just something I was thinking. But anyway, so we're going to get to chapter 32 here. Let's see. I think we're going to have one more reader here. Let's see here who hasn't been able to read for a while. Sister Marissa, are you able to read chapter 32 for us?
Yeah, chapter 32 of Job.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get my Bible.
Sure. Okay, let's see here. I might need to put a new camera on here. It's probably at some point. Let's see here. Exit out of that. Let's see here. Just let's see. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to read out of the ISR.
Okay. Sure.
And you 32?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then these three men ceased to answer Ayub because he was righteous in his own eyes. And the wrath of Elihu, son of Barak the Buzite, of the clan of Ram, burned against Ayub. His wrath burned because he declared himself right rather than Elohim. And again, his three friends, his wrath burned because they had found no answer and pronounced Elohim wrong. And because they were years older than he, Elihu had waited to speak to Ayub. And when Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, his wrath burned. And Elihu, son of Barak the Buzite, responded and said, I am young in years and you are aged. Therefore, I was afraid to let you know my opinion. I said, Days should speak, and only years should teach wisdom. But truly, it is the spirit in man and the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. The multitude are not wise, nor do the aged understand right ruling. Therefore, I have said, listen to me, let me also make my opinion known to you. Look, I waited for your words. I listened to your reasonings while you searched out what to say. And I paid close attention to you. But look, not one of you proved Ayub wrong, nor answered his words. Lest you say, we have found wisdom, it is El that drives him away, not man. Now he has not ordered words against me, so I will not answer him with your words. They have broken down, they have not answered again. Words have departed from them. And I have waited, but they do not speak. Because they have stood still, they answered no more. Let me answer on your part. Let me also make my opinion known. For I am filled with words. The spirit within me presses me. See, within me it is like wine not opened. It shall burst like new wineskin. Let me speak so that I find relief. Let me open my lips and answer. Please let me not show partiality to anyone, nor let me flatter any man. For I do not know how to flatter, lest my maker should soon take me away.
Ooh. Hmm. Great job, sis. I could hear you perfectly. Great job. Now, what I noticed here was already in verse 1, we see a difference of narrative here. The interesting in the Masoretic version, they try to put the blame on Job, that he was righteous in his own eyes, versus they stopped for Ayub was righteous before them. And that's definitely a difference in narrative, you can say. The LXX more shows that they realized they were in the wrong, so they, shut the yap. Versus him being right in his own eyes, So, and it actually makes the LXX version will make sense later on when you see at the end of the story where Yahuwah rebukes all of them except for Job. Then Elihu, son of Bereko, was angered. Oh, this is interesting. Country of Uz versus clan of Ram. I wonder if that's supposed to be a ram, not just ram, but a ram like Aramea or something like that, or Arabia. But it's interesting that the Septuagint says he would have been from Uz. So
The previous verse has that the kindred of Ram.
Okay.
It seems like the Masoretic is missing something altogether.
Yeah, it's weird. Elihu, son of Barakiel, the Buzite of the kindred of Ram. Oh, I see. Okay, so they just have clan of Ram, kindred of Ram, but they don't have about what country he's from. So that's interesting. So it leaves out that little part. Huh. That's interesting. He was very angry with Ayub because he justified himself before you. And again, it could be just wording with the ISR, or the Masoretes could actually have a bias against him, because they're saying he declared himself right rather than Elohim, versus he declared himself righteous before Yahuwah. I just want to explain there is a difference between the two. The one is trying to claim that Ayub would have trying to make an accusation against Yahuwah. That's what the Masoretic is claiming. The Septuagint is claiming that he was declaring his innocence, or that he was declaring himself righteous in the presence of Yahuwah. Now, there's a difference. There is a subtle difference. And my personal opinion here is that, they have a problem with Ayub. They don't like him. That's why they're changing the narrative. I have a feeling that the Mazarites just don't like him for some reason and want to make him seem like he's accusing Yahuwah of all these things when he's not. If you compare the two versions, he's not. They're changing certain phrases in the verse to make it look that way, but in the Septuagint, he's not. So that's something I'm noticing here. Okay. They were older than he, so that there was no answer. Okay. I just want to see if there's anything else. But I've noticed those two verses there in verse 2 and verse 1 both are trying to make Ayub sound self-righteous in the Masoretic versions of those verses. I shall understand as far as an argument, lest you should say we have found that we have added wisdom to Yahuwah. Wow, that's even a little different there in verse 13. Oh, go ahead, Brother Yehusha, go ahead.
It's Ezekiel. He's this guy, his name, what is his name? Hold on. Elihu, he's a Buzite. He's the son of or a son of Buzi. It's interesting because so is Ezekiel. I think the only other person that I'm aware of that it talks about being from the son of Buzi, or a son of Buzi, I'm sorry, is Ezekiel. I don't know if there's any correlation between these two people, but just interesting.
I wonder if they started intermarrying at one point with what tribe would Ezekiel be from? Yehuda?
I think I was trying to find.
Was he from Yehuda?
Isn't he?
I know he's from
I'm thinking.
I know Ezekiel's from the southern house, I believe. I just don't know what exact tribe.
He would have been a Levite.
Yeah, Levites. That's interesting.
Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi.
Huh. So I'm assuming that has to be a different Buzi, only because I don't think Yahuwah would allow him.
But it never says that Elihu is a Edomite. It just says Job and his three friends, and then Elihu just pops up out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Wasn't there in the previous chapters, or at least it doesn't say he was.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so you might have had a Levite talking to them.
Because it says he's of the kindred of Ram. If I'm not mistaken, there is a Ram in the Levite lineage. If I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna look real quick.
Yeah, it's very possible that Elihu could have been the only one that's not of Edom there that's talking to them, and possibly of Aaronic lineage, and trying to rationalize with them, like, see myself right, truly not be awed because of man. Huh. Interesting. I wonder why it's the Masoretic has maker here. It's interesting. Septuagint says, if otherwise even the moths would take me away, meaning like, how it talks about the wicked, their faces are going to be eaten by the bugs and the insects. I don't know why the ISR has maker. Let me see here why it says that in verse 22. That's a little weird. I wonder if they're adding stuff to the text there. Let me just see here. because that verse in context would not make sense. That out of nowhere. See here. Asa, huh? What does Asa mean? Displease. Yeah, the word they have for maker, there's no indication that word means maker. So, oh, I see. Okay, so maybe from the root it means to fashion or accomplish, make. Okay. I could see it being right that Yahuwah would, his wrath would be on him, so he would be taken away from the land of the living. Maybe that's what he means, but very weird. It's worded a lot differently from the Septuagint, verse 22. But that's just something I noticed there. So that's Job.
He was a Buzzite,
Yeah,
son of Barakel.
yeah, Buzite. Yeah, Buzite. Yeah, which there's also Ezekiel's a Buzite as well. So that's what we were trying to figure out. If Ezekiel's a priest, possibly you have this Elihu as a priest, possibly.
I mean, I guess it's possible that it's a different boozy, but it's just strong from saying when you go to, hold on, Job 32, Ram. So when you, it says, Elihu, the son of Barakal, the Buzite of the kindred of Ram. When you click on Ram, it comes up with a couple things. It comes up with a Judite, son of Hazron, father of Aminadab and ancestor of Dud, a Judite, son of Jeremiah or Jeramiel, and then the third is a kindred of Elihu, the friend of Ayub. However, when you click on Buzite, just as one of the ancestors of Buz, descendant of Buz, Buzite, and then when you go to Ezekiel 1, the son of Buzi, Ezekiel the son of Buzi, all it says is father of Ezekiel or ancestor, and then it gives you the origin H940, and then the origin brings you to one of the ancestors of Elihu.
Huh. Yeah, I think it's very probable you have Elihu as a Levite talking to them, which again if that is the case, you could have an early descendant of Aaron around that time. That definitely would kind of point to Masha's time period. And that's kind of interesting. It's
Well, this the Clintock Bible Cyclopedia is saying that, and they're getting this from First Chronicles chapter 27, that it was the tribe of Judah to be of the brethren of David.
Huh. What, that Ezekiel?
Supposedly maybe to be his eldest.
Ezekiel?
No, he was not his eldest brother. Yeah.
No, that's why I don't like looking that up online, because they're getting confused with different genealogies and all that. If you're a Levite, you can't be a Yahudi. You can't be both. Doesn't work that way. So now, if he's a priest, then he's got to be of Aaron's lineage or Zadok's lineage at the minimum. So they can't have it that way where it's two different tribes like that. So anyway, but yeah, I think what Brother Yahusha said though is very probable that you have Elihu as a Aaronic descendant talking to them, which again would mean that it has to be somewhere around Masha's dad's generation or Masha's generation would have to be when Job takes place, because you have to have the Aaronic lineage start some point. You can't have a story that has a Aaronite priest possibly talking to them without there being an Aaronic lineage at that point. So that might give us a hint to when this story, the narrative of this story, takes place chronologically. Yeah. So that's another hint that it wasn't right after Genesis 10, like a lot of chronologicalers want to say. They want to say, that Job knew Abraham. I do not believe. I would respectfully disagree. He did not know Abraham. He was generations after Abraham. Just for those that, want some proof of why I believe that, I'll just take you, even though we're not there yet, just to take you guys to a genealogy that the Masoretic takes out here. Okay. Go down to the last verse of the book of Job here. This whole verse, as you can see here, this whole paragraph here, the Masoretic leaves out in verse 17 of chapter 42. And Ayub died an old man, full of days, and it is written that he will rise again with those whom Yahuwah raises up. So again, the resurrection is mentioned there. This man is described in the Syriac book, living in the land of Uz, on the borders of Idumea and Arabia. So Edom and Arabia. So modern day, that would be like, I guess, the borders of Edom, wherever Edom is today. And Saudi Arabia, I know for a fact, is where Sinai was. So that's interesting that the real Sinai would be in Arabia. So that's interesting right there. That area is where he grew up. Okay. His name before was Jobab or Yobab, which again, in other extra biblical traditions, you can find his name as Jobab as well. Okay. Not just in those traditions, but if you go to the book of Genesis, you'll see other genealogies for him as well, and all that. Having taken an Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name is Enon. He himself was the son of his father, Zerah, one of the sons of Esau, and his mother, Bosora. Bosor was a part of Edom. It seems like his mother's name became a name of a location of Edom, so that he was the fifth from Abraham. So right there, fifth from Abraham. So the Septuagint tells you outright that he's 5 generations from Abraham. So we know for a fact, looking at the Septuagint, he could not know Abraham. Because let's just say a generation is like 100 years, right? That's 500 years later. Abraham's already dead at that point. So there's no way he would have known Abraham. So that's the only pet peeve I have with these Bible timelines. They put Job like right after Genesis 10. That is unrealistic. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Sorry. So Edom would be Mount Seir, or at least some of Edom. I don't know if all of Edom would be Mount Seir, but some of Edom would be Seir, which is an interesting word because it seems to trace back to Seder.
Huh.
Take that for what you will. But
now I wonder, I kind of wonder if that legend is true then about them, about the intermingling and Nephilim being there. I wonder if even from the word Sair, going back to Seder, if you had like a lot of Nephilim around a certain point at that land, and
well, that's where they get all their white people are Nephilim type.
Okay. I believe contend that some Edomites were giants, not all. You did have some becoming giants, because you had Esau's lineage married into the Hittites and the other ites. So I would say there's a partial truth to the Edomites, but not every white person's an Edomite either. So that's a whole nother ball game there. That's a whole nother weird doctrine. So the Edomites were not all Nephilim either. So there were certain descendants of Esau that Esau himself intermarried and had children with a Hittite woman and a Canaanite woman. So any children coming from those marriages very probably were Nephilim giants. But as a whole, he didn't have all Nephilim wives either. So that's another false assumption. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another false assumption. He did have regular normal wives, some of them. So they're not all going to be Nephilim and all that. But I do believe some of them were, and that's probably why you get Mount Seir and why it's related to Seder there. You probably didn't just have giants there. You had hybrids in that land at a certain point in time. So I know there's certain
I
historical.
believe that the Horites that lived there beforehand, I think the Horite means cave dweller. So they think that they interbred with these Horites. However, Scripture never says that they interbred with them. Just says that they moved into that place. So they could have killed them all. They could have married them and interbred with them. Like, it really doesn't say.
I wonder if that's why Yahuwah gave them that, is because they did kill them. I wonder if that's one of the reasons Yahuwah gave them that land. Because I remember there's times in Deuteronomy where it says, don't go to the Edomites. They're your brothers. Don't fight with them. I gave them that land. So I could see the Edomites of themselves killing the Horites, and then Yahuwah in return's like, okay, since you did my will, I'll give you this land. Or, I mean, Yahuwah could have promised it beforehand. It really doesn't matter. But I just find it interesting that I think the option of them killing the Horites and taking their land is way more realistic than them intermarrying with the Horites. I think it's just looking at what happened later on with the fact that Yahuwah was not going to give it to Yasharal. He's like, this already belongs to your brothers, the Edomites, and all that. So, but yeah, very interesting stuff. I definitely think there's a connection there with Seir. Just with the name alone, that Seir seems to go back to the word Seder. There's definitely some hybrids that were in that land, and all that. So that'd be interesting if that's going to happen in the end times, because we know that Yahuwah is one of the places he goes on the day of his wrath is Seir, or at least Bosora. Says that, who is he that's dripped in garments dripped in blood? Let me go to that verse, show you guys what I'm talking about here. So one of the places Yahuwah goes to on the day of his wrath is Edom. Let's see here if I can find this real quick. Here we go, 63 verse 1. Who is this that has come from Edom with red garments from Bosor, thus fair in his apparel with mighty strength? I speak of righteousness and saving, right ruling. Wherefore are your garments red, and your raiment as if fresh from a trodden winepress? I am full of the trodden grape, and of the nations there is not a man with me. And I trampled them in my fury, and dashed them to pieces as earth, and brought down their blood to the earth. Now, I wonder if this connects. Yeah, it does. Revelations 19. Yeah. So I wonder when Satan gathers the nations, the four corners of the earth, Gog, Magog, the actual geographic location is called Gog and Magog, if he brings them to Edom to fight. Because that's how this would connect here. He's saying, he came from Bosora, Edom. So it could be possible that the kings of the earth and Satan and the beast and all that are going to gather all these nations in one place at like Edom to fight Yahuwah and his myriads. So that's just something I want to jot down. So Isaiah 63 connects with Revelations 19, 11 to 13. I want to look into that more. Yeah, so as you can see, Bosor is a place in Edom, like Job 42:17 mentions. Anyway, so the reason I wanted to bring that up was clearly if he's 5 generations from Abraham, he did not know Abraham. So again, so the Mazarites, for whatever reason, left out that whole paragraph in Job 42, probably because they didn't want people to know that Job was Edomite, and all that. So anyway, because that would go against their whole idea that, we can't bring, because at some point the rabbis, they started to stop really converting. You'll see the Pharisees in the New Testament time period, they didn't want to go near the strict Gentiles and all that to convert the Gentiles. They really weren't trying to do that in the New Testament time period. Even the Samaritans, there was like rabbinical rules that you couldn't talk to a Samaritan. You couldn't, if you ate at the table of a Gentile, you were unclean. So I wonder if these same type of rabbis, maybe 1,000 years later, is when they read the Masoretic, they're like, okay, whoa, we got to get rid of that paragraph there because we're going to look stupid if we have that in our own Tanakh. And people realize that Ayub is an Edomite. Then they're going to be like, okay, why are we having commands telling us not to eat at the table of a Gentile when half of the patriarchs, had spiritual Gentile, upbringings. So I think they tried to erase that from their history, is my opinion on that. They tried. Most Judaism today won't let you know that Abraham was raised a Chaldean. Mm-hmm. Abraham was raised a Babylonian, and he was grafted in. He was the first ever grafted in. He became an Abri. Says, so for even though ethnically you can make the argument he was always an Abri and all that, spiritually he didn't become a crossed over one until Yahuwah, called him out. So spiritually, in essence, he was born a Babylonian, and geographically a Babylonian citizen. So, a lot of Judaism doesn't want people to know that. They actually believe in their mind that Abraham was Jewish or whatever. I'm like, so I could see the rabbis looking at Ayub's background there that the Septuagint gives. They're like, nah, we got to get rid of that paragraph. Nah, we got to get rid of that. So, but anyway. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Milka, and the rest of you guys that jumped on. All right, so we're going to end, I think, the study here. Please stay tuned, everyone, to Yahuwah willing. We're going to go back to Numbers next Shabbat, Yahuwah willing. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this Ayub study today and got something out of it. And please stay tuned. And all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your Shabbat. And I know a lot of us, Pesach is approaching close soon. So in case I'm not able to, say it before we get into Pesach, barely a week from now. So I just want to say, everyone have a great Pesach coming up on for those of you that keep it on the night of the 4th, just like we are. So Shabbat Shalom.